Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker. Our next guests are featured here every month on the third Thursday of every month at 11 o'clock a.m. Central Time. Dr. Michele Sherwood is a trained doctor of osteopathy, and Dr. Mark Sherwood is a trained naturopathic doctor. Mark and Michele use an integrated approach that focuses on prevention and lifelong wellness. The Sherwoods have a thriving medical practice, the Functional Medical Institute, and are recognized experts in health and wellness. In their 18 years of practice, they've helped almost 8,000 patients worldwide with an annual reach of over 1.3 million. Together, they've authored 3 books: Fork Your Diet, Master the 4 Fundamentals of Good Health, Surviving the Garden of Eden, Surprising Biblical Insights to Enjoy Optimal Wellness, and The Quest for Wellness, a practical and personal wellness plan for optimal health in your body, mind, emotions, and spirit. You can find out more about them at their website, fmidr.com. Here to talk about emotional eating and destructive behaviors that derail optimal health are Doctors Michele and Mark Sherwood. Mark and Michele, always great to see you. Welcome to your show right here on Revealing the Truth. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Happy Thursday to you. We're excited to be here as always, and what a loaded, pertinent topic we have to discuss today.
Well, you know, it's interesting that COVID-19 has, and there's so many memes about this, is about this huge weight gain, that people don't know what to do with their time. Now, you know a little bit about my story, that on November 27th of 2019, I weighed 204 pounds. It was the Thanksgiving period, getting ready to go to the holiday period, and I made the decision that my life was going to change, and I adopted the GOYB protocol. I'm sure both of you are familiar with it. It is the Get Off Your Butt, GOYB protocol. And I have this app on my phone that says that here's the average amount of steps you take during a day. And I was averaging about 3,500 steps a day in the course of my day's an 18-hour day. And everybody recommends you take 10,000 or more, and I'm in this super sedentary world. I go from 3 hours sitting in front of a computer under lights to several hours of study and preparation to several hours of writing manuscripts for books or contributions to other authors. Then I'm into reading the books in preparation for the next day's show. Then I do my show notes, and then I'm off to bed. And I've never done anything but move from one room to another, and took on this new eating style, which was more what I eat in Israel, and moving. Today I'm at 162 pounds, and I use resistance bands, and I use my dog as my walking partner, and she and I walk, and there's not been a day that we haven't done 5 miles at least, and it gives you the spread. Here's where you were last year. Here's where you are. Every one of these markers are up, and I'm scheduled for an annual Medicare wellness check, and I told the doctor I'm not coming in. You can do it by FaceTime. There's no reason for me to come in. Here's my new numbers. All right, I don't have any lab work. I'll go in and get lab work done, and I expect that to be extraordinary. But just from adopting many of your principles, I've been able to master through supplements and through exercise and movement to get out of this sedentary lifestyle. But this COVID-19 has put everybody into a sedentary lifestyle. And there's many problems that are being created because of this. Now, I have always struggled since a child with going to bed on an empty stomach. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that that was the punishment of my father, who you go to bed without dinner. You did this thing, and so I know that there is probably an emotional attachment to that. But after all these years and forgiving him and burying him and preaching his funeral, that somehow has been wired into me, where I don't sleep well. I have difficulty going to sleep on an empty stomach. So counsel and advice for people like myself that are late eaters: what should we do? How can we approach this and keep it healthy? I know that there are things that can be done, and what should I be doing, and what should I be aware of in this world that's now being isolated? You're stuck at home. People do love to cook. They've learned to cook, but they learn to bake as well. And so breads, things that last longer. A loaf of bread is 12 meals or 13 meals. And, I don't eat bread. I don't eat any processed grains. So that's never been one of my things. But I like ice cream. And I keep shopping for those those new brands that are one net carb, and they're not good for you no matter what they are.
No.
But how are we dealing with these emotional eating responses, and what's your counsel and advice on how to? Telling people not to do it doesn't work.
Well, I think there's a couple of things we need to establish. This COVID-19 quarantine thing, I think, is unequivocal. It's created a lot of stress, uncertainty, and even, we'll use the word fear. Well, in stress, uncertainty, and fearful times, we want to be happy. That's the human desire. We talked about, the hierarchy of needs to be loved, is up there, right? We all want to be loved. So we're all going to regress to what we know when we're placed in a position of uncertainty or anxiety. It goes back to when we were children, just like you said. Part of you going to sleep on an empty stomach, because it was translated as punishment for you, you remember that. It's put into your inner brain, and it's responding to, I want to be happy, I'm disappointed. So your brain is cueing you in based upon past experiences that have been completely internalized in the inner brain, that says, I need something to eat before I go to bed, therefore that makes me happy. So it's going to create this dopamine surge. And this is big, because we have created a society of people in our world that have used food, which is not food at all, to deal with emotions that should have been dealt with differently. And I'll give you an example. As children, let's pretend, Rabbi Walker is 5 years old. You're riding your bike, you fall down and get a boo-boo on your leg, right? You have a little road rash, and mommy comes over and is going to say, hey, let's give you an ice cream. You'll feel better. Further, you get in school. You make good grades on the test. Eric, you've done so good. Let's celebrate with ice cream. So now we have pain, we have celebration, joy. Eric, you did really good in your sports team. You guys played well, but you lost. I know you're disappointed. Let's go get an ice cream so you'll feel better. And then finally, Eric, your grandmother died. I know what'll make you feel better. Ice cream. So in all those emotions that we just talked about, we have used that same thing, ice cream, to remedy all the emotions. And again, that forms a pattern in our life that we carry on as adults. And when we become adults, when the pressure's on, when we feel pain, when we want to celebrate, when we have disappointment, when we have loss, we're just going to revert back to what we learned as a child. We're all big kids if we don't grow up sometime. And so we need to understand that dealing with those things needs to be changed. Now, we can't go back and redo our childhood, of course, but we can redo our thinking by simply going down this pathway. Do I understand, like you said earlier, that ice cream in this example is not any good? And if I do, I have to reconcile the idea that if it's not any good for me, it's not and was never directed by God to put in my body. Now, that's not something to say your parents did bad. They just did what they do, what we all do, what we think is right. But we've created a society where we've handled things like this in an erroneous, troubling way. And it's created a society where it uses food to remedy every single emotion we have. And that's why we're having so much trouble right now as a world, because we haven't learned to deal with things without remedying it with these temporary things called food.
So in that case, what are the solutions? How do we begin to train ourselves? What should be in our pantries? I think this is kind of you don't turn a ship by spinning the wheel, a big
Yes.
cruiser by spinning the wheel and expecting it to turn. You slowly have to adjust.
Yep.
It didn't take 1 minute to get here, and it's not going to take 1 minute to get back. I mean, I've been on this program since November, let's say December, so that's 9 full months, 8 full months, 9 full months of deliberate, intentional, and yes, I use a scale as a measuring tool. How my clothes fit, how I feel, as a measuring tool. You can have those kind of goals, and certainly that's great. But then, what do I put in my refrigerator? What do I put in my pantry? What are heart healthy, bone healthy, lifestyle healthy choices? I have figs, dates, apricots. I have those kind of fruits that prunes that aid in digestion and give me the sugars that I need, but out of natural sources, out of artificial sources. But I like them. I like them to the point where they are a struggle not to eat 40
exactly right.
apricots or 12 dates. What do we do? How do we stock ourselves up with the right things so that when you have this, I don't want to say emotional eating, but you have hunger that is not, it is birthed in boredom and masks itself as hunger. So you feel hungry psychologically. I don't know that physically you're necessarily hungry. And there's something that we have to reconcile in that connection. So how much of that is hunger? Some people tell me they have to eat every 2 hours in order to maintain their dietary lifestyle. Other people are like me, where I can go 18 hours without eating, and then I want to eat everything.
Yeah. So we always talk about having a relationship with food. It's usually not what you eat, but what eats you, what's eating you, that's driving you to do negative behaviors or to overeat and to eat late. And it's like having a conversation with what you're getting ready to, pile in your pie hole, for lack of a better word. You start to understand that it's a relationship. So the questions to ask are, do I need this? If the answer is yes, do I need this right now? If the answer is yes, why? And then most oftentimes it's either boredom, it's a habit, we're exhausted, or something is emotionally eating us on the inside. We're struggling with a business decision, finances, COVID, we're emotionally struggling. So the recognition that something else is going on is the first step. And then instead of eating, maybe taking a walk, doing something physical first, and then coming back home having a drink of water. Just fill your stomach with some water and maybe some fiber. And then, of course, the things to have in your pantry are fresh and raw fruits and vegetables. It's okay to have a serving of fruit. It's okay to have a salad. It's okay to have a piece of meat. It's okay to have a scoop of almond butter, something that will satiate your stomach without reaching for breads and grains and sugary treats that spike that hormone insulin and then store fat as fuel. That just bogs us down for a slow start the next day.
Well, I think one thing to add to that too, Rabbi Eric, and for the listeners is this. I mean, clearly, I think we could ask the question globally for all of us are those things that we've labeled as treats good for us? And I think most people say, well, no, I know they're not good, but you know how it is. We have to get reconciled to the idea, simply put, that if this thing right here we're walking around in, if we believe it to be the temple, if we believe that, and if we believe that God through Holy Spirit lives within us in that temple, if we really believe that, then would God direct us to put anything inside of his property that he bought with a price that would bring destruction or ill health or ill function to that? And I think most people would say, well, no, of course not. So then we have to get to this step. Well, if we believe that and we don't think that, then maybe an additional question we can add to that certainly excellent question list is God directing me to eat this? You know, and if the answer is no, well, don't do that. But that puts him in the position of becoming our nutritional coach, doesn't it? And I think that's something we've failed to utilize because he is the great physician. And I think we've probably not, as a whole, whether Christian world or not, regardless, we probably not listened carefully to the creator of our universe, the creator of our bodies, in a coherent way and trusted him. And even right now with this current timing we've got going on, and I see people in great fear. I mean, they're isolated, they're afraid of other people. And we've even asked ourselves recently the question, and it's almost a ridiculous question, is did Jesus wear a mask? And that's not making light of or not, it's not forming an opinion, but we have to ask ourselves, if we believe who he is, did he wear a mask? You know, and what did he do with that? And how did he, you know, I mean, so I say all that to say, let's not leave him out of the equation, because then we're stuck within our own willpower. And as we know, that won't work very good for most people, right?
If people wanted to, let's say, fresh start, made the decision like I did on November 27th. Mm-hmm. I want it to be different. I know that I live a sedentary lifestyle. I have to find an alternative to that. The holidays are, I don't have any immediate family close by, and have a very small, I have my mother, I have my daughter and my granddaughter. That's my family. So, and one's 700 miles away this way, one's 4 hours away that way. So there's no, so you spend holidays, you spend nights, weekends. I'm single. Not having the kind of, my social structure and social construct is very different. Yes, I talk to millions of people, but not one-on-one. I have very few one-on-one encounters. Most of the time it's me on the pulpit talking to thousands. And I do that before the COVID 250 times a year, plus daily television. So yeah, I interact with a lot of people, but I don't interact with a lot of people. So, you know, when I cook, I cook for me. Yeah. And I have complete control. It's not competing agendas of what somebody else likes. And I serve my dog food, so she and I don't compete.
Thank you. I was hoping you wouldn't feed your dog cheeseburgers. Just a thought.
No.
You know.
I like cheeseburgers, but not something that that I would eat. But I've gotten to a point now where I'm struggling in the grocery store to figure out what do I need.
Mm-hmm.
If I stick with wild caught salmon, if I stick with sushi grade tuna, I'm frying my boredom level to the, I'm over them. I did a couple of tuna steaks the other night, and I sat there, I just looked at them and said, that's what was there, and that's what I should be eating, but I'm really not interested. It's just it's lost its luster.
Yep.
It was great because it helped me accomplish. It was like I was doing things deliberately to accomplish the goal. Now I've accomplished the goal.
Yeah.
Now I know I should continue down that path, but I'm bored of it. I'm tired of it. It's not. This relationship with food has become not satisfying. So in this dissatisfaction, I can see why people stumble, because anything that's quote unquote legalistic is very hard for me, because I'm not a legalistic person. I'm not a religious person. And you say, well, you're an ordained rabbi, you're an ordained ministry. There's no more religious than that. No, that's not religion. That's faith. Okay?
That's right.
There's a difference. So we're about to go to break, and I want you to think about, and maybe it's something that I can say to you, hey, can you come up with a tool? Can you come up with a little bit more exciting list of things that people like myself that want to live this lifestyle can mix and match, and it's not, look, the spice cabinet's full. I've got the flavors, and I can flavor a piece of cardboard, but I'm just not interested in the cardboard anymore. And what things I can do that we have natural things. I like crunch, and most of the things that I eat are soft and mushy. So I'm missing what used to be a pretzel, or missing something that used to crack. The jaw, the sound, the feel, the mouth feel. Healthy eating has not a great mouth to it. Think about the natural senses. Is that the soft foods don't give you that satisfaction of our meat tearing and our bone crunching, and if you go back to our natural state, we heard bones crunch.
Yeah.
We don't hear bones crunch anymore. I've got to go to get the bone crunch. I've got to go to that jar of collagen to get my bone crunch. Well, it doesn't crunch; it dilutes. So I'm sharing, not just for me, but I think I'm a voice for a lot of people that are right there where I am, saying, I'm going to buy that box of pretzels. Okay, I might only do it once every 6 months, but you know what? I need to have that crunch. Cal's not getting. I'm a big kohlrabi eater. Okay, I get a lot of that sound, but it's still not the same. So I want you to think about that before we go to break. We're talking with Dr. Mark and Michele Sherwood, both great friends of the program. We're talking about wellness, and wellness, optimal wellness, body, mind, spirit, and the challenge of you being stuck at home. Restaurants are not fully operational, and restaurants aren't always the best place for you to go get your nutritional fix. It's your social fix great, your nutritional fix not so great. So what do we do in avoiding destructive behaviors, falling back into traps, rebounding the bounce, and then when we don't feel well, not looking at what we've been putting into our bodies, but then we start running to the doctor, and the doctor is not a nutritionist. The doctor is a general practitioner. He's not going to tell you what's good for your bones, what's good for your ligaments, what's good for your overall wellness. He's going to treat your particular problem, which may be an infection that has to do, it's symptomatic of your overall lack of wellness. But, you know, as much as they try to make wellness really exciting, and for those like Dr. Mark that have been involved in sports and bodybuilding and things like that, that excites him. I'm Jewish. It doesn't excite me. You know, it would excite me to buy a football team or to buy a basketball team, but I'm just not going to go out there and play it. That doesn't excite me. So we're going to take a short break, and we're going to talk about how do we deal with some of the wonderful things that healthy eating and a wellness attitude bring with it, but then some of the honest, candid commentary that says, I'm bored out of my mind with what I'm sticking in my mouth. It's not fun anymore. It's accomplishing a purpose. I do it because it needs to be done, but I'm just not having a great time at it, and I'd like to enjoy it more. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, inviting you to join me and my special featured guests twice per month with Rabbi Zev Parat and Carl Gallups, and monthly with Dr. Michael Heiser, Dr. Michael Lake, Dr. Timothy Jennings, Dr. Mark Baker, Dr. Jeffrey Johnson, Drs. Michele and Mark Sherwood, Dr. Kim Moss, Derek Gilbert, Peter Rosenberger, Brandon Gallups, Steve Fair, Stephen Black, and Sean Tabbitt for in-depth insights into Israel, prophecy, the unseen realm, the brain, spiritual warfare, overcoming shame, mysteries of the Bible, prophetic insights, the sensational and the supernatural, caregiving, addiction recovery, understanding the divided heart, same-sex attraction, and much more. We're proud to feature some of the greatest biblical minds from both Israel and around the United States. Check out our featured guest lineup and 24/7 feed on ignitinganation.com or watch by topic on any device with our free apps. If you can't find what you need, you're just not looking in the right place. Follow us on social media and download our free apps today.
With today's smartphone technology, news, information, sports, and entertainment is widely available and almost unbounded. But what about the information that believers in Yeshua are looking for? Well, now there's an app for that. Igniting a Nation now has apps available for Android and iPhone. With our app, you'll gain access to everything you would in our website, from our featured guests to our live streaming shows. Visit Google Play or the Apple Store and download Igniting a Nation's new app today.
Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, inviting you to join me and Israel's #1 rated guide, Edo Canaan, for our annual Israel trip. Our 2022 trip is now open for registration for our 18th trip to Israel. Our trip will take us from Tel Aviv to the Galilee, down to the Dead Sea, and 4 nights in Jerusalem. You will walk where Yeshua walked and watch the Bible turn from black and white to living color. Visit ignitinganation.com/events and download the registration form today. No, it's not too early to take advantage of our payment plan designed to fit any budget. All of our trips sell out, and we want you to experience this life-changing journey. Registration is now open for April 2nd to 13th, 2022, and we promise you, you will never read your Bible the same way again. Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, and we're talking with Drs. Mark and Michele Sherwood about osteopathy and wellness and boredom. And listen, let's be real. There are people who love to work out. I don't love to work out. There's people that love to eat Indian food. I don't like Indian food. We all have our different structures, but I would tend to believe that there's probably more of me than there are of you.
Oh, yeah.
And
Agree.
in America, when we take a look at the average waistband, and we take a look at the morbidity rates, and we look at the fact that my hurdle was to get below a 25 BMI, okay, body mass index, and now I'm in the great zone. I'm right where I need to be. I've got margin on both sides of this. I can go down more and replace it with lean body mass. I can actually increase my weight, but not my fat. And I'm now at a point now where I can retool my body. And there's nothing wrong to go into my 70s with definition and with having a full functioning body. But I'm bored. I'm bored of what I eat. I'm bored of what I can, and evaluating and saying, well, when I look at this and I look at the total saturated fats, and I take a look at the net grams of carbs, and I have a friend who is a weight management doctor, and he says, 25 carbs a day, get it all from vegetables. There's no external sources of carbs that you can have outside of vegetables. So I don't eat breads, and I stick to that. It's the broccolis, it's the cauliflowers, it's the cruciferous, it's those kind of things. So I understand that, but I'm bored. I'm bored out of my mind. Right? And I'm drawn to that freezer section where I stand there and look, and it says it's really heart healthy, and it says it's keto friendly, and it says it's got all these buzzwords that have absolutely no meaning to me whatsoever. But I'll taste one. Well, it tastes really good, and it says it's got these beneficial things, and there was no names I couldn't pronounce, and that's like the ultimate test, the baseline test. If you can't pronounce it, don't buy it.
Right.
But what do we do with this, Doc? What do we do with this idea that my body's the temple of the Lord, and people enter the temple with dirty feet. These are my dirty feet.
I think you got to get to the point where, when you talk about resetting, go back to this idea of freedom versus bondage. Bondage is about restrictions. You can't eat this, you can't eat that. And I think, honestly, man, I've been in that mode too. And, we think no way can Doctors Mark and Michele get there too. But come on, man, you do this. We've been doing this for 40 years. I mean, that's not 4 days. 4 months, that's 40 years, 4 decades. And finally, this is just introspective moment here. My wife has no idea what I'm going to say, but here's the thing, man. I get tired too of thinking about eating healthy, and I had to get to the point at some point in time where I said, what in God's green earth am I doing here, man? What is this? And then I thought, okay, I'm in bondage. I'm in bondage to this thing, and the thing was, I was trying to do so good for a reason. Then it hit me one day, man. And I hope people get this, and I hope it helps you as well. I don't need to live in bondage. God was not about limitation. He's like, man, do anything you want. It's freedom. And so I say to people at this point, absolutely. If you want a cookie or a bowl of go get it, man. Do it. Experience that. And if you have a bad experience, you'll probably not do it anymore. If it drives you back, in your case, if it drove you back down the line of sickness and stuff, you probably wouldn't do it anymore. But I think you got to cut yourself a break at this point and go, time out a minute. I may be living in bondage, because bondage is like a square that you can't get out of, but your world becomes really small. It's like, I've got 5 foods I eat 3 times a day, or I eat 2 times a day, and I eat in this window, and I cook the same way, and I sit in the same chair. You got to change it, man. You got to get on the other side of the table. Try something different. Expand the horizons. And there's a lot of things that we have today in the health arena regarding food that we did not have, say, 15 years ago. So it's better now. You can find breads out there now that actually are healthy. Cloud bread, CLOUD, is healthy. Get it, use it, put it in there. It's got almond flour, some coconut flour, and some egg whites. There's things that we can do now to sort of get our palate back again, because if you try to eat bland, you're probably going to have a bland life, plain old life. And then I think with that said too, transition from bondage into freedom again, and just, experience it, and let lessons become the teacher instead of us trying to put it in a box, man. And I think with the other part of that is, I get bored sometimes too, even, working out and even studying the Bible. I'm just being honest with you here. I'm like, man, okay, I'm reading now, and am I getting anything out of this, Lord? What the heck am I doing here? And really, I have to get, and this is working through this, even verbally, I have to get to the point where, God, I don't want to get bored growing in you, and all this is growing in you, and I really want you to renew my mind again so that I can see things differently, and I can see my purpose, I can see my goals, I can have a heart that is going towards what you want. Instead of looking at all these little things I'm doing, I just step back and go, time out a minute, man, what? And I had to put praise and worship in my ears when I'm working out, so that I had to stop thinking about my reps and sets and how much I was lifting and how much cardio I'm doing. Instead, I had to get to the point where, okay, God, I'm just going to worship the concept that I can move my butt and I can move my legs and I can walk. And so, we don't put a lot of thought into it anymore. I mean, honestly, I kind of am so overthinking about it, kind of like you're getting to. I'm so overthinking about it. I just had to let it flow, man, let it roll, and I don't really think about it much anymore. So the more we do that, the more natural it becomes, which brings us back to the concept of living like a fruit, like the fruit of the Spirit. Just live like a fruit and let the characteristics of that sort of blossom in my life. I hope that makes sense, but it's like, man, I hear you, and people do get just tired of that grind every day. We've got to step back and get way away from that, because it's going to drive us, well, frankly, berserk, oh my gosh.
And part of the fruits of the Spirit is self-control. And if we've been living a healthy lifestyle and we have body composition optimization and our biomarkers are in line, meaning that, we're not diabetic, our lipids aren't crazy, off the charts, and everything else is lining up, of course we can, have a piece of cake or, whatever it is that's crunchy. If you want to go with Mary's Gone crackers or whatever that is, yeah. Usually if you've been living a healthy lifestyle long enough, you feel great. And then if you start introducing those things too frequent, your body says, that's enough.
That's right.
We have some form of self-restraint. We understand self-control, so we're not going to sit down to a bag of Doritos anymore. Mm-hmm. It might be enough to satisfy our crunch and then move on.
Yeah, if you're at somebody's place and they have a Doritos bag there and you want one, even if you chill out on yourself, man, relax. You eat that thing, it's not good. You make that decision, right? And right. If that sort of thing brings out sort of a freedom behavior in you, praise the Lord, that's cool.
We talk about the difference between addiction and freedom.
Right.
If you can't live without a Dorito, it's addiction.
Bingo.
But if you choose to have a Dorito separated in space and time one time, that's freedom. You've made a choice to have a Dorito. But if it's driving you back to the refrigerator time and time and time again, or the pantry, then you're actually addicted.
It's interesting because there's, and I see this going into Sprouts or Whole Foods or Fresh Market. You see people standing there looking, and
yep.
and what they're thinking. All right. I thought for a while that I could trust a store that says that we're going to stock our shelves with healthy food. So when they came out with the so okay, well, I'll replace chips with okra. But then I'd eat the okra, and then I'd read the package, and it's been fried, it's got this additive, it's got this, and so you think, okay, well, it's okra, but it's just as bad as the chips were. Not getting the benefits of the okra. So I almost felt betrayed in this marketing that said, that we have these healthy choice, even products called healthy choice.
Yeah.
They're healthy for the bank of the manufacturer, but they're not healthy for my body. So I know that there are a lot of people struggling who want to do the right thing. So then the question becomes, all right, let's say I am 80%, and I still live in this 20% world.
Uh-oh.
Can I use supplements as a part of my overall wellness plan to ensure that where there are holes, where there may be those things that aren't necessarily beneficial, that I have something that can compensate or counter or remove something from it? Is there a way to come up with this plan? I do krill every day. I do niacin, niacin supplement. I do that for arterial health and for triglycerides, and although I used to eat a lot of sweet things, I don't anymore. But there are benefits to niacin in the system. Okay, so. So I do the fish oil, and I use krill because I found that to be the highest in omega-3s of the, and I do a baby aspirin. That's my regimen, and the supplement that we talked about, the collagen, which is a protein. Right, so that's adding another 32 grams of protein to my diet by taking the collagen. So that's a protein benefit when I'm trying to build muscle. That helps in that process. But when we look at all this from an optimal standpoint, what other things should we be considering? And
so, when you look at that, Rabbi Eric, there's a couple of things and a couple of different angles. You got to see both sides of the coin. Starting off with the second half of the question, which is about supplementation. This is what we've seen based upon our experience for all these years testing thousands of people. Everyone, yes, thousands of people, everyone, 100% are deficient in the essential omega-3s. And I think the deficiency is not based upon only not getting enough, but getting too much omega-6s in the diet. Now, omega-6s are going to be these rancid oils, burned oils, canola oils, sunflower oils, sunflower oils, peanut oils that are all soybean oils that are mixed into everything. We have to, without question, supplement with a heavy amount of omega-3s. And that needs to be 3 to 5 grams, not 3 to 5 milligrams, 3 to 5 grams of predominantly EPA over DHA. So of that 3 to 5 grams, which is 3,000 to 5,000 milligrams, we need to have about a 3 to 2 ratio of EPA over DHA, and that needs to take up the majority of that oil. Now, we also see people very deficient in vitamin D, and obviously that's got a big discussion today with our immune system. Our vitamin D, we all need about 5,000 international units. That's smart, and as we age, we need to make sure we have vitamin K2 in there because that helps pull the calcium out of our arteries and puts it in the vein, puts it in our bone again. And so that would be about 125 micrograms of vitamin K2. And then we also see all the time the third one, which is clearly deficient, which is magnesium. And magnesium's a big deal. We need to have a form of magnesium, glycinate or gluconate, something of that nature that doesn't, we typically, the cheapest one is magnesium oxide, which is put in everything. That does nothing. Magnesium citrate, which will cause your bowels to dump, that can be useful from time to time, but we need to get magnesium up in the system, and that needs to be probably 400 to probably 600, 700, 800 milligrams. And we can do that, we're going to be fine in those three areas. So we need to do that regardless of things, regardless. We also have seen many, many times B vitamins deficient too. So therefore a B complex is good. But those first three are always deficient. Now, with that said, the healthier we eat, the less we're going to want. So we will eat less the more nutrient dense the foods are. The less nutrient density we eat, in other words, these high calorie, low nutrient foods that are the processed foods of America's, obesity pandemic, that's what I'll call it, those have no nutrients, hence they're going to drive us back to the pathway to have more. Further, they drive dopamine, which makes us happy. So the more happy we're getting temporarily, the less nutrients we're getting in, the more nutrient deficient we become, the more weight we gain, the more depressed we get, the more we want to eat. So you can see it. We spend so much money on this unhealthy food that we spend more on that than healthy food. So it's quite a conundrum we've got ourselves in here. But long answer to a short question, but we've got to look at both sides of that, and we got to make both sides of it a focal piece of our nutritional interventions.
And in America today, or anywhere today, with the state of the health of the soil, even if you did eat 100%, we would need some supplementation over the top of our food intake.
Mm-hmm.
Does in order to do an assessment, do you need a blood, or can you find it in other means, hair?
Yeah. Well, you can. So assessments typically for nutrients are done with a micronutrient panel. There is some that you can do with typical serum, but micronutrients looking down inside the white blood cells and what's in that cell. But you can look at the serum, which is the blood. You can look for omega-3s. You can look for vitamin D. That's a very common test. But look, here's the thing. You don't need to, and I'm saying something very aggressive and pertinent now, you don't need to have an assessment to begin to take omega-3, D, and magnesium. You just need to do those things. And that's a given for everybody. You're not going to, the dosages we gave you just now are not going to get you in trouble. They're going to help you. Now, as far as B vitamins and some other, micronutrient minerals, vitamins, amino acids, fatty acids, yeah, you want to kind of dig deeper in that. Hair is not the best measurement. It's going to be the micronutrients or the serum that is the best measurement.
Well, I appreciate you being as candid about boredom.
All good.
The people like yourself, the Jordan Rubins, the Dr. Axes, very excited, very enthusiastic. It's really, really great. And when you're 6'4" and you're cut and you've lived this way all your life, it's one thing. But when you're 5'9" and I always tell people 5'10", but you age, you shrink. I'm not 5'10" anymore. I'm just and my frame just can't carry. I mean, I would have that orangutan look if I tried to build. So lean mass
That's what you want.
Is what I want. I want my clothes to look nice, to fit. I don't want a lot of chins, and you're on TV. You want to age gracefully in front of your audience, and we have people that have been following us for 10, 12 years, and they've watched me go from having color in my beard to now it being metallic blonde. But as we look at this, a true, honest, and this is what I love about the two of you, is that you have the professional chops, but you have the honest understanding that the reality is that we have a lot of confusion out there. I wish there wasn't 30 choices for everything. You got 30 choices for everything, and it's overwhelming. I can't determine. Like when I went to the store to talk about the supplement, she was a trained naturopath, and she gave me the biological composition of everything and said, okay, now which do you want? And I said, I want to not have to go to college to understand what you just said, because it was completely wasted on me. I'm just trying to get started. I don't know where I'm trying to get to, but I'm just trying to start. So I appreciate you both very much. We look forward to seeing you. And if you'll produce that wellness doesn't have to be boring. I think we can get a lot of people excited about making small changes to have a major effect. So thank you both so very much. Look forward to seeing you right back here next month. God bless. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the next edition of Revealing the Truth.